18, Councilman Walking Stick, can you do it?
Everyone please stand. God, Father, we thank you for the season, Lord, when we remember you, Lord, for coming and to this world to save us, God, where we fall short. God, thank you for bringing us here, whether it be an employee or a elected position, God. We know that, God, all things happen, God, for a purpose, Lord. And God, I pray you just use us, God, while we're here. And God, that your glory, God, will be revealed through all these works that we do for you, Lord. God, we pray for those who are ill, God, and God, just pray that you just offer us a healing hand, God. Be with the doctors and everyone else, and God, just bring them back to health, Father. God, we praise you for all these things, and God, I pray as we go home with our families, Lord, that we'll count all the good things we have, Father. And Lord, just be with us today and be with us during these holidays. We praise you for all these things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Oh, Shelley. Do a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Dick White.
Here.
Harley
Here.
Bill England.
Honey.
Keith Austin. Joe Bird.
Honey.
Sean Crittenden. Mike Dobbin.
Here.
Wanda Hatfield.
Honey.
Eddie Jordan.
Shane Gordon.
Mary Bakershaw.
Honey.
Leo Smith.
Here.
Denise Taylor.
Here.
Victoria West. David Walkinston.
Honey.
Brian Warner.
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, and I'd like to start reports with Marcia Lamb, please. Actually, let me ask for approval of minutes.
Make a motion that it be approved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Marcia?
Well, I was asked about our Lahee blanket, and so Miss Tammy, this is our new blanket.
Oh, pretty. Oh, look at that, the 7 twins. That's pretty.
That's nice.
Beautiful.
That's very nice.
That'd be a big
A
hit.
bit like the purple around it, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Look at the color of that one. Did we all get one?
Yeah. We get one. We all get one, right?
Yeah, happy Merry Christmas. This is what they call a knockoff. This is what it will look like. They really won't be in until probably February. What I'm gonna guess, because they come from
When it gets around.
overseas. But, order it from a Indian-owned company, and they just did a fantastic job. I think outdid themselves this year. But anyway, I'll make this real brief. We are taking Lahee applications now until the end of December. We got a little extra money for Lahee, so we have opened up our crosses. That's for all ages to help with their electric and stuff. And that we'll probably reassess that in January and see if we need to extend it. Our youth services was contacted by a school up in the Delaware area, and they had a problem with bullying, and so the youth services went and talked to the teachers and trying to find out what the core of it was. They decided that they needed to really do some interacting with the children, with the kids, the teenagers and kids. So they're going to go up there and put a Christmas program on for these kids. This is a poverty program, just to open the doors. So I want you all to remember we do have youth services that work primarily with troubled kids, and we might not always get to do a party for them, but we would gladly go up and talk to them. And that's all I have to report on.
Wanda?
I asked this question a million times, but I'm going to ask you again. Do we have services for our at-large citizens when it comes to like disasters, like the fire, I'd received some emails or phone calls, and I think I've directed them to your office just because I wasn't certain of the answer. Is that a yes or no? And I think you've told me that, and I think in some cases maybe there, you know, there are maybe you've given me suggestions or
What we do
different
when
agencies.
when it's something like that out of the area, we try to make sure they've hooked up with Red Cross.
Okay.
We try to look on the internet for services for
Okay.
them. That's all we really can do.
Okay, so basically you'll do a refer, so
Yes.
in the future.
Yeah.
And I know I asked you this question a lot, and
And we
I don't know why.
we don't mind contacting them,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Were you-
just to, because some of them, they have no idea how to start.
Did you get any calls from California? Because I know there were some Cherokees in in that area, Los Angeles. Did they contact you
I
by
think
chance?
I got one.
One? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you,
Mhm.
Marcia. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, Marcia, I just want to tell you thank you for coming out and helping out with our tornado victims. You guys went out to those nutritional sites and sent advocates out there to get people with emergency assistance and helping them out just to get them through this tough time. So I thank you for doing that. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Yep.
We're going to actually do some training on that because it could have happened any place. I'm sorry. And so we're going to do some training with our cooks and our community advocates to on what they need to do when something like that happens. So we kind of get laxed. We forget what to do, but and we have some new staff that have never worked in a disaster. So we work very closely with emergency management on that. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, you know, on the people that lost their food warehouse, you know, they got to go back and get food.
If
You know how many we serve like that, well, you know, later on?
no, but I can give you a report.
Yeah, I'm
if you
just
want.
curious on how many, because I know 8 are dying.
If they lose their food towards the first of the month, it can't be replaced.
Right.
It cannot be replaced through USDA if it's at the last of the month, because USDA, I guess, figures they've already done something. But we have through the BIA, we have a program that can help. The money is given to the family to use however they please. It's really it's really to help with their clothing, and it's a Band-Aid for something like that, you know. But it could be up to $1,000. It depends on what they lost. A total loss, that's a no-brainer. If you're talking about sheds and stuff, that's not what we call their immediate need, you know. And actually, I heard of a program through USDA that those farms that lost cattle and equipment, there's a grant or something to that. You know, there are resources out there for them, and I shared that with emergency management. And what Human Services is doing with emergency management is we're going out into the community and we're talking to those families that we have names and numbers for, and we are doing a follow-up. Did you get Red Cross? Do you have a place to stay? Things like that. Okay, so I'll make sure that's part of the question.
Okay.
Okay.
And, you know, we talked, and you do a great job with the gas bill and the electric and all that, but did we ever consider any more about the water bill, doing something to help them out on that?
That's just one that really doesn't fall anyplace. Well, there is part of the policy that if it's an elder, that there's just nothing else out there. Sometimes we'll help, but I'm really bending the rules and taking a chance when I do that. So I don't like to. I'd rather help them free up an electric bill or something where they can maybe take care of the water. Okay.
David?
Marcia, did you say that there was a grant or available for farmers that may have lost cattle or barns or so forth?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes, I can't tell you what it is right now, because when I found out about it, I just sent it on to emergency management, but I can get that for you if you want it.
If you would, please. 'Cause
Sure.
I know a few people that could probably benefit from that.
Yeah, I
or
heard of something
could
that
help from that.
that lost it, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. Sean Green.
Yeah, Dick, I don't know where I'm going with this, but Wanda I've heard her ask several times, and Mary, about services for at-large, and unfortunately, a lot of them, you get told no a lot. And I hate that for your constituents. And this is just something that kind of dawned on me. I'm not even asking a question, it's just a thought that 17 of us meet here, and you know, aside from the audience and everything, sometimes we could throw some stuff out like this, but we tell them no a lot on the departments. And yet their vote is really crucial to who ends up in the positions like the departments and the power people who control the services here in the 14 counties. So they have a big voice that way, but when they're told no. So that's deep thoughts by Jack Handy that I just had. So that's all I have, Mr. Lay.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's the thing, the phone calls that Mary, we both receive are extreme cases. You know, it's like the gentleman in, I think it's Miami, is it Miami or Miami, Oklahoma. His well was met, and I'm sure it had something to do with the, all the issues they've had with the water. It's extreme cases, and it's, you know, a grandmother or a mother, it's a health issue. It is, and you know, Mary and I can tell them, you know, there are health facilities. Well, sometimes if you live in, you might have facilities in Seattle, Washington, but you might be 4 hours away or 5 hours away or 3 hours away. So really, it isn't convenient, and you would think an elder would have some means, some ways to get medical help. But though I get extreme cases. I call Marcia, I'll call Human Services or any other department. It's usually extreme cases, you know, where people are at the end of their rope. So that would be the reason I would contact Marcia. And I don't know if Mary's the same way, but I kind of think along in your lines too. It's like maybe. I know we would have to appropriate more funds for that large, and it is a huge population. It's a large population, 265,000 people, but they're still Cherokee, and there are extreme cases where they need help. And usually what I do, and I don't know what Mary, probably the same thing, is I try to contact well, the leaders, number one, and find you know, maybe a facility that can help them, or some kind of social service in that city or a town or whatever near them. Because, like I said, sometimes they're not always in Seattle, they're out. And so I receive, you know, it's extreme cases like the fire in Los Angeles. You know, I mean, I don't know how many Cherokees were. I mean, I received a couple of emails, or you know, like in Houston, for instance, we had the flood or the hurricane. So it is extreme cases, and it's just like it really is difficult to tell an elder no, or someone that's had an issue with a child, you know, a hospital, but you know, and of course here's the other side of it. If we help someone in Tucson, Arizona, if we help someone in New York City or wherever. Okay, and then, you know, what people are afraid, I guess, is that the word will get out, and then maybe we have to assist everybody. But, you know, I think there are extreme cases sometimes, and I don't, you know, usually, you know, Mary, you know, we have to say no. But there, you know, at the extreme cases, I wish there was a fund, you know, that, you know, and sometimes it's just, you know, they're like Cherokees here. They lose their homes, They can't pay their rent, they can't pay their utilities. I mean, it's like us, they have drug problems, they have medical problems, so it's no different anywhere else. It's just the fact that they live outside the jurisdiction, and we have to depend on the social services of that city or that town or that area to, and that's difficult sometimes to be in contact with. Some of the cities that are near Oklahoma, and near Oklahoma, it's easier. Especially, I've had contact here, and I've had through our travels contact with maybe like the Dallas clinic or the clinic in Phoenix, or et cetera. So anyway, just thoughts. Thank you.
Can I say something? What I have found out is I get phone calls, and a lot of times these people just want someone to talk to or just to listen to them. Because I know there was a case, a lady had a sick, it was an older child, but still, doesn't matter how old they are, they're still your child. And she called me, and I gave her a suggestion. She called me back, I gave her another suggestion. And by the time the fourth or fifth call came on, we were on a first name basis.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to know your tribe cares about you and will listen to you, even though you might not have programs that help. At least you're giving them suggestions and just taking the time with them. And,
I get those calls all the
yeah,
time as well.
yeah.
So I know what you're talking about.
So.
Mary Shaw.
I want to agree with absolutely everything Councilor Hatfield has just said. And for you who are sitting here, anytime you have to say no to a citizen, imagine us representing 265,000 Cherokees who are Cherokees, who have needs just as similar and same and maybe even harder than what you're experiencing. But I do want to brag here real quick, because I think in the last week or two, I've called 2 of the people and made contacts here with sitting right here. And I want you to know I have never had one service department, even though we're at large, say no, they wouldn't try to help. They would see what they could do. They would call the people. And it's just like Marcia said, they appreciate knowing that somebody is on that phone talking with them. And you want to know what it's like to handle, 50 to 75 phone calls a day, walk in our shoes, because you want to know why we need more business cards than you may. We have 265,000 constituents. And I really appreciate you, Marcia, appreciate Gary Cooper sitting back there too, who have just helped me in the last week tremendously. And it's like Councilor Hatfield said, and I appreciate Councilor Crittenden bringing this out. Imagine what it would be like to walk in our shoes, because it's a different path, I can promise. And it's one, I might add, that we both very much enjoy and appreciate the honor of doing. I just said so.
Thank you, Marcia. Oh, Community Services, Martha Kitcher.
Hey, there's no way she can leave that blanket still. There's no way she can leave that blanket.
Certainly got it. I come also bearing gifts. Merry Christmas to you all. You would take one and pass it down, please.
Just one, Keith.
Those are from our Youth Development and Adult Resident Program, made ornaments for you. So you have the report before you, and just want to hit on a couple of highlights of the report. That November was a good month for our youth activities. It was well attended this month in November. There was up to 478 youth attended.
That's chaos.
We also have the brain architecture training that's going on this week with our HERO project and working with our youth, brain architecture. So I'm attending that as well. So you're looking at me like, what is that about? We're not going to come out brain surgeons or anything like that, but also just look at the development of our youth and at what stages we can best reach and plant those seeds. Highlights from our OEH&E program. A couple of the major projects have made progress, went from 80 to 85% with Delaware County Rural Water District number 11, and our Southern Delaware project went from 75 to 80% completion. We're also reconciling our prior year funds carryover, so we'll be doing some budget modifications to incorporate those prior year funds. If you have any questions, Also, before you is a draft, is a visual aid that I've been working on with the staff, thanks to Philip Manus and directors from the Community Services Department to help me develop this visual aid of where our projects are and where we're at in the communities for all of the programs that we serve. So you can see across the counties where we are serving. That's all that I have. If you have any questions.
John Crittenden.
I have a question for the water and sanitation.
Okay.
Chris, if I have a constituent that well water's been contaminated, and they're thinking probably about 9 households on this stretch of road. What's the best way for them to kind of get on the radar? Would it help at all for those families to get their names and contact numbers?
All we need is one name and number.
All right.
And we've got folks that can go out and canvass the area and kind of narrow down a project on that.
Hey, let me give that. I'll just give you a first name.
Okay.
Just while we're talking here, and we'll get done with that. Let me do that here in just a minute. I'll hold this up. Thank you.
Any other questions?
That is just a draft it's work in progress, so as we complete it, we'll give you a final copy of our map. Thank you. Thank you.
Gary Cooper.
Hey, you got it, don't you? It's completed, right? Thank you.
Good afternoon, and you have the report. There's a couple of things that I want to be sure to mention. College Housing Assistance Program. We will take some spring applications for that program, and we'll be taking those applications from January 2nd through January 18th. And those applications are available at our office, but they're also, the application packets are already available online at our website or through the Cherokee Nation link to the Housing Authority website. And the whole application packet's there with everything the student needs to bring in, and they can have the whole application completed before they ever bring it in if they would like. But we will have some slots open for the spring semester. I'm sorry? January 2nd through the 18th. Yep. So they can go ahead and fill all the information out now and then just bring the packet into us during that time. Also, I want to be sure to mention, there was 2 things that had came up. I think someone had asked me, I think there was some misunderstanding for folks living on trust or restricted land. Those folks are eligible to receive rehab services as long as they're income eligible, meet all the other eligibility requirements, and we can get a lease for them. So if it's on trust land, we work with real estate services to secure that lease, but just because they live on trust or restricted land doesn't mean that they're automatically not qualified or disqualified from rehab or any emergency rehab programs. They are eligible as long as they meet the other eligibility requirements. Also, I think there'd been some discussion about someone with a felony is disqualified from receiving assistance. That is not true either. If someone does have a recent felony conviction, we may have to go through our grievance process, but we can usually handle those unless it's something just extreme. But most of the time we can work through that, and that's on any program, not just housing rehab. I think it's been a while since I've given an employee update at the end of the fiscal year. So at the end of October, we had 229 employees at the Housing Authority. 94.8% of them were Cherokee, 98.7% of them were Native. And that left us 1.3 that were non-Indian, and those have been longtime employees that had transferred over to Housing Authority whenever we separated back out. The other thing I want to mention, I think Keith mentioned last month that we just finished up a large modernization project up at Claremore for the elevator. That is open and running well, and hopefully, I say hopefully, we will be starting sometime this coming year. Hopefully, if Congress hurries up and does some appropriations, it might be sooner rather than later. But our next large modernization project will be up at Pryor. We're actually going to, we've worked out an agreement with the town of Sportsman Acres to connect the sewer system that takes care of, we have, I think, 86 apartments over at Pryor. We have an office. We have a large community space that we actually, that Head Start uses. So there's a Head Start program over there, and I think there's a couple of Cherokee Nation departments that have offices over there as well. We will be able to tie on, build a new system, build a new line over to the town system and tie into them, and then we'll be able to close down the existing lagoon system, which has probably been there since, if I had to guess, it would probably be early 70s, probably around 70, 72. It still works fine, but we was either going to have to expand it or do something else. So that will be a pretty large undertaking that we'll be doing, but we will be starting that. You know, I did mention that the continuing resolution that the government is operating under, HUD, is one of those programs. So we don't have this year's funding yet, but we still continue to do a lot of work, and that doesn't hold us up. We have money that we operate on and continue doing that. Some large projects we may have to wait just a little bit on until we know for sure when that funding is going to be made available. I think other than that, the one thing I want to mention is a couple of y'all have sent me some emergency rehab requests, and I think we've got all of those taken care of, and those started and going. If anyone else has any emergency rehab requests that they would like to make, just let me know. We will get it. If you can usually just give me, if nothing else, a name and telephone number. We will take the application. I have staff who go out. I know that I've done it for probably just about everyone in here. If you give me a name and telephone number, we will send someone out to there and sit down with them and fill out an application. And that seems to work a lot better than saying, hey, come here, go there. And then a lot of folks, they'll say, oh, well, we'll just come in. And we can also go through and give them an idea, a list of what all we will need from them so they can just make one trip. So we do that a lot. We also work with Marsha's program a lot to get folks to take referrals from them for different things. I think working with their staff, we worked with about 10 families that were placed in temporary lodging at one of the hotels to try to get them some type of assistance, whether it be temporary rental assistance or some other type of rental assistance. And then we've had several others. I think we have about 6 or 7 emergency rehab applications that we're working on right now. Everything from, I think I had one from like just a small little deal, like a part of the well house was damaged, to Councilman Shambaugh up in his area had one that the mobile home was just totally destroyed. So we have several requests that we're working on. Some work's already been done and some work's continuing on. But all of those families that we've been working with have either been followed back up with or contacted, and they continue to get us what we need. And then I think we've had 2 that we've been able to take some emergency rehab applications on, temporary rental assistance, the emergency rental assistance. I believe one we was able to help and one might have been over income. But that's what we've got going on. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Councilman Walkenstick.
Hey, Gary, you were talking about the trust land and rehab going to work on those properties.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys come in and do work on that property, will that land be taxed?
No.
Okay, so you guys are able to work and keep trust status?
Yeah. It stays in trust. What it does is we have to have a lease, an approved lease through either Real Estate Services or BIA. We have a system in place.
Okay. Because before, when you guys come out there and work on it, they had to give up their trust status.
No, that was only on if we did like a brand new house through a new housing program, not through rehab.
Okay, that was always the statement I had. So.
Yeah. No, on rehab, as long as we can get a lease. So usually, if it's like a like part of a family piece of property or something like that, we can usually get that, and we do that quite a bit. And then usually, actually, I think we have a pretty good system worked out through real estate services. They handle that, the technical parts of that, so I don't know. But usually what happens is we do an inspection, say here's what it's going to cost to rehab it, and then they can usually tie the lease back in to get the approvals they need through like BIA or wherever it has to go, depending on what type of property it is, that the lease amount is that money we're putting into it.
Yeah.
But we, as long as we can get a lease, we're good.
Chief Baker mentioned some tribal funds being available for the tornado victims, actually
Yes.
for all victims, or all citizens, but in this scenario, what's the process, Gary, to get a fast rehab, a quick rehab on these properties?
Okay, and part of it's going to depend, like money-wise. If we're talking about something like in the neighborhood of $7,500, if they were part of that, and they're eligible, income eligible, all that other stuff.
So,
then,
so this, so let's say that they come to your department and they get denied. My folks are going to get denied because they don't have home insurance. Okay. Through federal funds.
For federal funds, but not
yeah.
not our tribal funds. If they're
Is
elderly,
there
handicapped, or
income-
disabled.
Are we still having income eligibility with these tribal funds?
With the tribal fund, okay, with your pot of money.
Or Chief's pot of money?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, we would deny them over on our side for income eligibility or whatever the other case would be. And then it would be up to you or he or whomever to approve those.
Okay.
That's kind of outside of my wheelhouse. I just hold on to that money. If we've denied them for one reason or another, it would be up to you if you wanted to use your funds
So
for that.
this is why I'm asking this, and Shamball's probably in the same boat, is we need a process for, okay, so they're gonna go to your office.
Actually, the best thing, if I can get a name and telephone number for them, let me have someone get a hold of them, and we can make arrangements to either go out and get an application from them at their home or wherever they're at, or we can call them, because a lot of times here's what we do is we will call them and say, we're going to need A, B, C, and D. And then all they have to do is make one trip into the office instead of them going to an office and then filling out an application and, well, here's what we're going to need. We can save a lot of time there.
Okay. Because I have a lot of people that are tribal citizens that need help right now, and there's some limbo out there. But if you guys are getting a process in place for these people, we can start getting them help.
We have a process in place, and then if you know that they're going to be over income, I can probably give you an application that you can. If you'd like to. As long as I have some way to say they're not eligible for the services at Housing Authority, and if it's income eligibility, that's a reason someone wouldn't be eligible. And then that would kick it over to you for that pot of money.
Okay, so we have our people call who? Denise Rooster? Who are they calling?
Yeah, she's one of the ladies in Telequal.
Okay.
Usually what I tell folks is just ask for emergency rehab. Because if they ask for a certain person and she's out for lunch or out,
Are you guys identifying? What I'm saying is we need to expedite the tornado victims because their houses are not livable.
Yeah, we already have a number of those that we have.
So you guys are giving those people preference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, no, not any preference other than their emergency rehab, but like ones where it's been like a roof.
Window blown out.
A window. Yeah, there's been a couple with like some window repairs. I think you had one like that, and some other things like that. Now, if it is like a major job, then we'll have to look at something else. But at least if we can do something in the range of money that we have to stop whatever problems you know, fix the roof or whatever, and then figure out what we're gonna do to the inside
All
with
ours is
another
patch
pot of
jobs.
money.
I mean, the people that I'm needing help with,
Mhm.
it's just patch jobs. Roof
Yeah.
blown off, window blown in.
Yeah.
Electricity from the pole to the house is out. The propane tanks ripped out.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those that we've already,
I mean,
you know,
those
went
are
out and
things
fixed.
they're minor, probably, $3,000 tops to fix maybe.
Yeah, sometimes they're not even that, because I can think of two in here that fall in that category that we've already been out to take care of.
Okay. So,
That we've, I mean, we get an it's an expedited
Well,
process
I'm
if we can get a name and telephone number
okay,
for
I'm
them.
gonna send them to you. I'm gonna send their information to you. You guys call them.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's the best and easiest way.
The next thing last thing is, the next time there's a national disaster and you having staff development, keep one or two people back home at base, because I sent some of those people over there, and you got my email, and the council got my email. I was highly frustrated that day, because we were literally on the ground helping those people out. And then to see that, I probably overreacted, but in the future, please keep someone back home when something like that happens. And then I think we'll be good.
Okay. And also, you hopefully have my work cell phone number, and
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Lay calls me at, in the middle of, it doesn't matter. Give me a call and we will,
I couldn't talk to you at that moment. I was
Sure.
pretty aggravated.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I pulled down a little bit, but this in future. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sean Quinton.
Good. Hey, Gary, I caught something a while ago on the
Yeah.
insurance deal. Now, I know our emergency money, if they get denied, we can use it kind of when it's needed. But you said you don't have to have insurance if it's Cherokee Nation, elder, handicapped, disabled, right?
if we're using like your tribal emergency dollars.
Let me ask you
Just
this.
the only pot of money that insurance is required on is federal funds, NAHOSTA funds.
Now, do we, Housing Authority gets Cherokee Nation money, right? I mean,
Yeah, y'all send us a couple of pockets of tribal funds.
I've been getting lots of calls just, within the last year, I guess, maybe, about the insurance problem. So, just, does everyone get those calls about the insurance? They can't work on it because they may not have insurance.
Yep.
But if tribal dollars don't require that,
And they're elderly, handicapped, and disabled.
and I'd sure like to be at budget time if, might be me or somebody else, but look at replenishing or making a bigger pot of money for those instances, because there's lots of calls on the insurances, getting some of them.
Yeah.
If we could,
And
in those instances, draw from this to go ahead and help.
And it's usually several a day, because anytime that there's like tribal funds requested, where there's something like that, my staff emails me a request, and
Is that a possibility if the
yeah,
money,
I mean, whenever it comes to that time and you want to discuss it, we can look at it
the
and
money,
see.
that'd be budget
Sure.
time. And I'd sure like that. I got to
You bet.
figure everything. All right, storm shelters.
Yeah.
Now, in all my 3 years, I
Yep.
don't have very much experience with getting people one, or do we still have that?
Yes, we do for elderly, handicapped, and disabled families,
And they just go
and
to
they have to be
regular-
income eligible, and
their office. And
yeah, and we have a application. We do both kinds.
are we doing a lot of those, Gary?
I want to say usually about a dozen a year, thereabouts,
and that's just
somewhere in that neighborhood, and it's just based on
and you
funding
have
availability.
You have a list.
Yeah, we keep
Long
a
list on that.
It's not a long list. It's not a long list. We just keep a list because that pot of money is also tied to emergency funds. So we usually try to take care of the emergencies first, and then what's left we try to get with that.
And, what does that generally cost? Do you have that right off?
It's usually somewhere between 5 and 7, and it just kind of depends. Sometimes it might not be. I think I actually had it before. It might have been about $5,500 to $6,000. The last ones might have been 55. I can check and find out and send that to you, because I had got that not too long ago. whenever I had asked that question, and my staff had given me what the last group was.
Every great once in a while, somebody else that I hadn't had much experience with.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but we do, they have to meet, eligibility requirements just for like, emergency rehab.
so in order to do more, since
And,
the storms have came and we're kind of,
and that's
You're
usually
aware of it.
when folks start, asking more about it.
that would equal out to, if we want to do more than 12 a year, we would have to get you the money to do that, right?
We would need to look at it, because like I said, right now, it comes along with the pot of emergency dollars and all of those other dollars. So we tend to concentrate our efforts towards the emergency to make sure that we can cover all of the emergencies that come in for the year. And then as we get further out into the fiscal year, then we'll do storm shelters. We try to do a few, several times, and then catch up with whatever we can.
I had some notes from my meeting the other night, so this is something you normally would just answer, but
Okay.
since I got it here.
Okay.
I've got a young guy that applied for new construction, and he's come up on the list. And they called and said, now this is their side, said they're denied because the mother lives with him now, is gonna live, he's taking care of his parents. But the mother had let a house go 12 years ago.
And probably owes some money.
Yeah, and so is that mother federally guidelines?
That mother,
It's
there
gonna
was
hurt
federal
him?
funds expended,
On
and we're
her.
required to try to make every attempt to collect those back.
this
So
is
as long as she is a member of that household, it would.
Well, that's federal guidelines, right?
Yeah, because anytime that person comes in, regardless of what funds we're expending, we're required to attempt to collect those federal funds that were expended.
Now, let me ask you this worst case here. So if, let's say if he's up on that list to get a house, that's a good thing. Now, is he just at the bottom already, or if he said, hey, wait a minute, Mom, you're gonna have to,
I'd have to look, because I don't know. I mean, if he had already been done something and they denied him, then through our grievance process, there's a period of time that you have to appeal that denial. So I would hate to tell you one way or another without researching it first. I mean, yes, it could be taken care of pretty quickly, but if he was given a denial for a valid reason, received that denial,
Because his mom
and then
wouldn't be
appeal, then it may be out of time.
a lot of folks, including me, sometimes fail to read that fine print, and I hate that for them, but
Yeah, and it's not real, and actually that part of it's usually not fine, but anytime anyone's denied services from the housing authority for any reason other than, like, if you just don't pay your rent, that's doesn't qualify for a grievance. If it's income related, if you're determined you're not income eligible, that's not a reason. But almost for anything else, if you're denied because of criminal background, if you're denied because of a family member, history or whatever, you're eligible for a grievance. And at the bottom of that letter, in bigger print usually, in bolder print, it says, if you do not agree with this decision, you can appeal it. We have to have a request in writing.
that leads me to think of some of the, the jobs that could be created with some of these Cherokee speakers. Sometimes, just here's what you need to do, this guy down, this guy, and, if there was someone at these facilities that, their job was to sit down and make sure these folks understand clearly, their job to do it, because, a lot of the words you say go right over my hand, and I was in 6th grade.
Yeah, and most of the time, those people call and say, "Hey, I got this letter. What does it mean? Here's what it is. Just give me a statement in writing. All I can say is I don't agree."
Right.
And that starts the process. Yeah.
And I'll get you that name. We can look at it exactly.
Yeah.
And sorry, I had that little meeting, and I got a couple more things. All right. This was a pretty good idea. The lady brought to me, because I see it a lot in Adair County. I'm sure everybody does, but you know, when houses are getting taken because of taxes, and, you know, the sheriff's sales and things, I'm not trying to do legislation. This is just a good idea that I hope some of my buddies will think about, get with me later. But do we have any anyone that kind of keeps up with those houses? Because I mean, they're going for $1,000, and these people are swooping in, and I mean, they're, as you know, the housing situation. You do your darndest, but what I'm seeing is some of these houses used to be Cherokee Nation. You know, they paid them off, then I guess they call it feed land right there.
They went out and got another loan, and they're foreclosed on.
But they're in good locations, and they're good houses, and it made sense to me, this lady, that, you know, there's several people on that, you know, new construction list. If we could just keep an eye out for these, purchase them, and fix them up. Just say, hey, new construction, it's not going to be brand new toilet, but it's going to be a house. You know, but I've witnessed the price of these things are just low. Do you have any?
We don't have a funding stream to purchase those with.
Well,
there's
anybody
no,
else on board for?
I mean,
for
I'm
that?
not saying that's not a good idea. I'm just saying that there's not.
But I thought that was a dandy idea, but yeah, and then that's my job to come up with something to lay out.
Good ideas.
So, right. But one more thing, Gary, and I just had some questions here. Somebody asked me, and sometimes, you know, when they ask me, I'm like, yeah, I need to know that. So is it true that the Housing Authority of Cherokee Nation is an external nonprofit organization, a state charter? Is that a true statement?
No, that would not be. The Housing Authority of the Cherokee Nation is an Indian Housing Authority as defined by Oklahoma statute.
Okay, so
There's a special
nonprofit organization.
There's a special state law called the Indian Housing Authorities Act that the Housing Authority was created under.
All right, and then
back in the 60s.
The other one was, so you are not under any of the 3 branches of the Cherokee Nation government?
Directly?
Well, just,
I mean, directly, no. Indirectly, yes, because the tribe is ultimately the one that sets forth the Indian Housing Plan on how the Nahasta dollars will be spent.
that's the Housing Authority Board?
No, the tribe itself, and then the Housing Authority is the one that operates those housing programs that are sent over there to them, and then the emergency, like y'all appropriate tribal funds, like the funds we were just talking about earlier. So, I mean, those come directly through you. We don't have any control over that. Y'all set how those come over and how they're spent.
Okay.
And we just carry out your wishes that you tell us
And
to.
on the federal side?
Yeah, on the federal side, we carry out the federal programs based on what federal funds come to us based on the housing plan that the tribe puts forth and y'all approve every year.
And these are pretty straightforward
Yeah,
questions. So
yeah, and I
one
mean,
more.
there's a couple of them that don't have a direct answer, but I
Okay.
can get pretty close.
Are you accountable to any of the 3 branches of government?
I mean, I would say, yes, I mean, me individually or the housing authority itself, or I'm not 100% sure there.
Housing Authority.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Again, you all send us money. If y'all don't send us that money, and then we don't have those programs to operate. And at the same time.
But you would still have the federal dollars?
Yeah, and at the same time too, you all approve our commissioners. The chief appoints the commissioners on our board, and it's subject to your all's approval. Does that make sense?
All right, so there's a question that I know the answer to.
So
Yeah,
I think that's a lot like a lot of the other boards in Cherokee Nation that may not report directly to you, but report to a board.
All right, well, thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mike Shambaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sir. I guess, appreciate you getting on, you know, I've given you several things.
Yeah.
Past several weeks, appreciate you getting on them.
You bet.
And returning those calls. Like I told you before, I think it's very important, you know, that when they hear from an authority figure from you, because you're ahead of that, I mean, they can answer you can answer the questions we can a lot of times, and,
Yeah.
and you know, they want to hear it from you. But it seems, you know, with the tornado stuff, I'm nothing like you guys, and I haven't had the damage, but there's not a real quick fix here. You know, the emergency money is $1,000, you know, and that's nice, but it's kind of a Band-Aid. It's not, it won't go very far. The other fix, I guess, there is no quick fix, because, you know, if we're going to get into what we're getting into with mine and theirs is no insurance or no deed to their house. You know, they're not going to, they can't conform to federal requirements, so it falls back on us. And but that money is pretty limited, you know, as far as anything major, what we can replace. We can't replace very many major things. I mean, a roof, you know, but windows. But well, when you start getting into total houses,
Yeah, it starts adding up really quick.
I mean, that's where I'm kind of at right now, and I'll just tell you guys, and it was a good information from Gary to me, is that I know some people in FEMA. I'm going to contact them tomorrow and see if they have any type of trailers or anything like that. So if they do, you know, if you guys are interested, I mean, I know I am, is for replacements on that property. If they're willing to do something, I'd sure like to try to get some from them if we could. So, but you know, I'm trying to think outside the box, just like Sean did with the, you know, buying the houses, on the sheriff's sale things, and I brought that to you, you know, with the houses that's lost, and I've seen between here and there. You know, I just think that we have to try to think outside the box, you know, at times, because we know what we can and can't get, but just trying to give you ideas, and I appreciate you listening to us, but
Hey, you bet.
you know, I just don't think there's a quick fix to this that I see.
And we try, and I know too that like there was a couple of community groups, and I think in emergency had contacted on behalf of community groups. We have like a weatherization program where, you know, we can do, but they were needing wood slats to help tarp some roofs. We had those available, and here you go. So I mean, if there's a way we can finagle it to work in one of the programs we have, we certainly will within the rules and guidelines we have, whether it's through your all's money or federal funds or whatever. We'll do our best.
If we can find some trailers like that, you'd be interested in maybe?
I'll do whatever we can, and I know, you know, in years past we've gotten, you know, those types of things before, and I'll be happy to do whatever I can to try to help, because I mean there's some, I mean, just like the one that you had asked me to call, I mean it was a complete loss, and she was just, you know, and she didn't want to move, and so, you know, rental assistance didn't really work, and there wasn't really anything left that could be done to the house that was there other than clean it up, and hopefully, you know, maybe if something ever did become available that, you know, could go back on site. But there's some like that where it makes it really tough. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Eric?
Hi, Gary,
Yes,
real
ma'am.
quick, do we have an emergency plan for a situation that happened in, like, Councilor Watkins' district just a couple weeks ago? Do we have a plan or a policy? Should we have? Was it implemented?
Well, we don't have any emergency type funds to where we can just go out and put boots on the ground type deal. Actually, the one pot of money that I can think of specifically that are tribal dollars that you all appropriate to us specifically says that we can't use that for any type of labor or overhead costs. So it really limits until we get some type of application for us to make that determination on what can be done. And that's why we work hand in hand with like Marcia's program, Human Services, and those other types of programs that do get like emergency type dollars, the emergency management or natural resources or whomever might.
Gary, would it help in the future if we consider funding your organization for that type of thing?
I will be happy to do whatever you all ask me or send me to do. I mean, I think we've always done that, and I mean, I don't have a problem with doing that.
I know you have, and I really appreciate some of the ways you've helped me,
Yeah.
large citizens.
And
Thank you very much.
And you know, I mean, I've had folks from Sand Springs to Sapulpa or even California. a lot, like the 184 loan program, that's a program we can offer to them, but, you know, sometimes the one we was working with in Muskogee the other day lived outside, but if we can move them back in, then we can get them some help.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Brian Warner, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Would you like to amend the agenda?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add a resolution certifying compliance on a grant participation.
Any second?
Second for that.
Any discussion? This needs to go over tonight, I believe.
Yes. Vote on we need to vote to amend. Yep. Okay.
Right. Okay. All in favor of amending the agenda?
Aye. I'd like to make a motion that to approve a resolution certifying compliance with 24 CFR Chapter 9, which is the April 1, 2003 edition for the Citizen Participation Grant. This is the ICDB block grant. Put that for a motion.
Second. And it needs to go to council tonight.
Any discussion?
He'll go to council tonight, we just
Yes,
passed.
please.
Okay, we're good. All right,
No discussion?
no discussion, we already.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
I'd like to be a sponsor.
Okay. We have some sponsor requests, Shelley. Anybody want to sponsor this thing, raise your hand.
Sponsor.
Looks like everybody.
Everybody a stick.
And we're good, and we're coming to 5:15. Speaker or body, do you want to try to get ahead and get through this and, or come back?
If we don't have anything of urgency on these reports, we'll let the reports stand as they are unless somebody really has something of value or important. I know they're all important, but if there's something you want to share with us, if there's something you really need to share with us, then step up to the podium. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Michael Lynn is hiding right behind.
Oh.
Yeah, there he is.
Good
Any
try,
question of him?
Just one quick one.
Yes,
One
sir.
quick one, Uncle Lynn.
Michael, I've had several calls from people about the Piney Bridge. They've seen people down there. I don't know if what they're doing. Has anybody from the county contacted you about that bridge?
No, they have not.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about what's going on there, so
All right, that's all I need.
I'll see what I can find out.
All right, thanks, sir.
Will you call me about the White Mission when you get a chance?
Excuse me?
White Mission, when you get a chance, just call me tomorrow.
Okay, we'll do it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Thank you all.